I was going to record a video on something, why physical fitness is the foundation of personal growth, which it is, I think. But you know where I got that prompt from? I got it from ChatGPT. And in fact, I created a whole bunch of scripts using ChatGPT, and I was going to talk to this camera and read out the scripts. And I'm not going to do that because it's the coward's way out. If you're watching this video, there's a decent chance that you feel like you want to do something like what I'm doing right now, whether it's a personal growth YouTube or maybe you're a musician or whatever it is. You want to give more of yourself to the world around you, and it's a very scary thing. You're probably suffering what I'm suffering, what most people suffer from when they want to do this, which is imposter syndrome. I'm going to get to that in a second. But I want to talk a little bit more about the coward's way out. I spent multiple days creating a whole bunch of scripts through ChatGPT, and I was trying my best to make myself feel good about it. And how I was doing that was by putting in prompt. I told ChatGPT who I was. I told ChatGPT who I wanted my audience to be, and I told ChatGPT how I wanted to communicate to them. I even said, hey, this is the curriculum, or this is like the next year of content that I'm thinking that I want to create. Can you help me fill in the blanks? And ChatGPT, in a matter of seconds, did that. And it made me feel two things. One, really excited because it's like, oh man, this is going to be the easiest endeavor ever. And two, really guilty because I just got a machine to do the work that I should have been doing. It's the coward's way out because I'm not good at this yet. And I could have watched, or I could have, read off the ChatGPT script, and I'm sure it would have been okay, but it would have just been okay, and it would have been exactly what, all the other people who are putting out ChatGPT scripts are doing. It would have been homogenous. It wouldn't have been me, is the most important thing. And sure, I hope that you get something out of this, but the most important thing for me is that I get better at communicating. Communication is something that I want to be good at, and it's something that I'm lackluster in right now. Communicating a point succinctly, and effectively, and following a script prompted by ChatGPT is not going to help me get to that end. Let's talk about imposter syndrome. Well, what is imposter syndrome? First and foremost, imposter syndrome is you feel like you have something to offer. You want to help people through personal development like me, or maybe you're a personal trainer, or you're a music teacher or something like that. You could even just be in your job. I remember when I was a mechanic, I had incredible imposter syndrome. I just got out of school and I was working for a shop, and I thought, who the hell am I to be working on this guy's $250,000 boat? I just got out of school. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Realistically, I totally knew how to do all the things that was asked of me, but I didn't have historical evidence showing that I was capable of doing what I wanted to do. And that caused me to not only think that I couldn't do it, but think I was probably going to be the worst at doing it. About a year ago, I was talking to a guy, and he said, hey, Taylor, what's the number one thing that we were talking about sales? He said, in a sales call, what's the number one thing that somebody is worried about when they're on a call with you and they're thinking about buying whatever product you have? And I thought about it for about 3 seconds, and I said, well, probably price. They're worried that they can't afford it. And he said, no. The number one thing that people are afraid of on a sales call is that they are going to purchase whatever it is that you're selling, and they're going to feel foolish because it didn't work for them. They're going to look like a fool. They tried again and they couldn't do it, or they bought something that they wanted to do, but they didn't have the energy or the commitment or the motivation or the consistency to actually follow through and get whatever it is they wanted to get done. It was a paradigm shift for me because I realized that for myself, that shows up all the time in my life. The thing that holds me back from so many things isn't the fear of failure. It's the fear of being seen as one by others, or being seen as foolish is probably the best way of putting it, looking like a fool. Not an easy thing to think about, to imagine yourself in that light to the people that you care about. And I think that that's at the heart of imposter syndrome. You might want to connect with others, you might want to help, you might want to bring more of who you are, your purpose out into the world. And the thing that holds you back is this idea that, oh, if I do, will people see me as a fool? I say, hey, this is who I am, and let me help you. And they say, no, you're not. That's not you. And then you look like a fool. For me to ask ChatGPT to write all this stuff for me, basically what I was saying is, hey, ChatGPT, I'm too afraid to make an error, to learn through mistakes, to put myself out there and be okay with falling on my face a few times so that I can get back up up eventually and walk the rest of the way. And so because I'm afraid of that, because I'm afraid to put myself out there, can you please just create a homogenous script for me, something that has really no soul to it, and is just saying all the things that you can find on a blog post anywhere, and has no real injection of my own personality or my own story or my own experiences in this script, just so I can, just so I can have something to post on YouTube. And I'm like, I'm glad that I came to this realization, but it's just, there's a lot of wasted time in order to come to these little revelations. The hours that you put in, the days that you put in, the weeks that you put in to fool yourself. And the funny thing is, you're afraid of being seen as foolish. And because of that, we end up fooling ourselves. The easiest person to fool is yourself. I've told this story before, but years ago, I created a YouTube channel, and it's still up somewhere with the intention of making fitness content. And I remember I went to the kitchen of my building that I was living in at the time, and I had I can't remember, some crappy old camera or whatever, and I set it up, and I pressed record, and I started speaking to the camera. I was like, uhs, ooh, I don't really know how to speak to the camera, and it was really awkward. And then I remember watching it back and going, my God, I can't post this. To make a very long story short, I ended up purchasing all of these different things. Well, let me tell you the story. So I saw that video, and I thought, well, this camera's not very good. That's probably the main thing here. I've got this crappy little camera. I need a professional camera if I want professional videos. So I spent months researching what camera I needed to make myself look professional, and I bought one. And then I set it up, and I did the same thing, and I was like, my God, the lighting's terrible. It's a great camera, but the lighting's not good. So then I researched, how do I get better lighting? Oh, I need three-point lights and all these sorts of things. And again, a whole bunch of months went by to, figure out what the heck I needed to do to get good lighting. Finally bought some lighting. Set up the lighting, set up the camera, started speaking to the camera, reviewed the footage, and I was like, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm tripping over my words. I'm not making a succinct point. Oh, I know what I need. I need scripts, and I need to be able to read those somehow. So I did some more research, and I found out you can buy this thing called a teleprompter that hooks up to your camera. And then what it does is you look through the lens, but what the audience can't see is that I would be reading the words on the screen. And so I did a whole bunch of research as to which one would fit my camera, the cheapest one, but the best one at the same time. And months went by, and I bought the teleprompter. But now I needed scripts. So I spent a career writing, months and months and months worth of scripts. Anyways, a whole bunch of stuff. I got lav mics, research lav mics, a mixer, research mixers, color grading, research color grading, the best editing software, research editing software. Months turned into years. And I actually moved from that city to another city, even into another country. And I remember this was years later, and I still hadn't even put one video out. Years later, and I was sitting in my living room, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put these videos together. I'm gonna shoot some videos today. And I set everything up, and I'm sitting there, and I basically had a checklist, and I'm like, okay, camera check, lighting check, scripts check, teleprompter check, lav mic check, levels through the mixer check. There's got to be something else. I must be missing something. And I was looking, and I couldn't think of anything else that was missing from this list. And I was like, well, I guess I have to film the videos now. Like, I guess I've literally got everything done, and I have no excuses left. So what am I going to do? Am I either going to shoot these videos and put them out, or I'm going to fold everything up and put them back and just realize that I don't have what it takes to get these videos out? And I wish that I could tell you that I shot the videos and put it out and built a massive following on YouTube, and that's not the case at all. I ended up packing it up, and I moved, I was living in the States at that point. I moved back to Canada. And then when I was living in Canada, I was like, enough is enough. I'm going to get this friggin' thing figured out. I'm going to put some videos out there. And to my credit, I finally, after all those years, put some videos out. And I look back on those videos, and they were so polished. Like, the lighting was perfect. I had all these animations flying in all over the place. And I had, a lav mic, so my audio sounded good, all these sorts of things. I had all that dialed in, and it was absolutely dead. It was a super dead video. And the reason why I was dead is because I was looking at the camera, and I remember, like, if you look back at those videos, like, my eyebrows kind of go up anyways, like, I'm surprised. But, normally when I'm just speaking, my eyebrows sort of look kind of normal. But when I was reading from the teleprompter, I'd always do this. I don't know why. I just, when I was trying to read, I had my eyes up. And I'd always get comments like, why are you so surprised? I remember I got one comment that it looked like somebody was standing behind the camera with a gun, because I was, please don't shoot me. But anyhow, so these videos were dead. They were soulless because I was reading off a script and, I was trying to add inflections where I thought there should be inflections. It was dead. It was good information, I guess, and I stopped doing them because it took an absolute career to make any of these videos. There's a really good question that I heard Tim Ferriss ask like so long ago, and it popped up into my head every single time I went to create some videos and I failed and I put the stuff away because I didn't have, all the things figured out perfectly. His question is, what would this look like if it were easy? And I asked myself that question a couple times. And what would this look like if it were easy? Well, I don't need the teleprompter. I don't need the lights. I don't need the fancy camera. I don't need the audio mixer. I don't need the lab mics. I don't need any of that stuff. I have a fully functional camera in my hand. I can just literally hold it out and speak to it and, just talk about what I want to talk about. That's easy. That's super simple, but it's really terrifying because you'll soon find out how well you can communicate the point that you're trying to get across. And it was too scary. And I've tried to do this a few times and I don't remain consistent. And the reason why I don't remain consistent is because it's a very humbling experience. Most of us, and I'm assuming this includes you, think that we have a lot of our ideas, or a lot of our concepts, a lot of our views of the world figured out, right? When we talk to ourselves in our mind, we have these really articulate, well thought out conversations. And then when we try to communicate that out, it gets jumbled, it gets lost. We just don't get across what we want to get across. And we're kind of forced to sit there like, oh man, maybe I don't know as much as I think, or maybe I'm not as versed on this topic as I thought I was. I have more learning to do. And I don't think that that's the case. I mean, sure, everybody should. I'm planning on continuing to learn. There's infinitely more things out there that I don't know than I do. But that doesn't mean that I'm not ready right now. Because going back to this whole ChatGPT thing, I had all the scripts for the rest. I can't even believe, this is so embarrassing to me. I had all of the scripts for the next however many years, or however many months, pardon me. And all I had to do was read them. The thing about it is like, why would I do that? Because I'm scared of making mistakes, really, is what it comes down to. I'm afraid of talking to the camera and doing what I'm doing right now, which is rambling and going all over the place and whatnot. But that's totally fine. And it's not fine because this is going to be the best video that was ever made. It's totally fine because it's going to get me closer to a better version of videos that hopefully I'll be making in the future. It's going to help me get okay with being not perfect so that I can get better in my pursuit of perfection, which never will happen, but I can get closer. There's a really good book called Mindset by, I can't remember the names of the author. Maybe I'll put it here, although I'm trying to make as minimal edits to this video as possible. I'll put the book right here maybe. That book, I mean, it's hilarious to me how you can understand concepts. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I need to do. And in fact, I'm going to do it. And then when it comes down to it, you're like, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. In that book, I think it's that book, there's this story about the difference between two people. One's a natural born artist, the other learned how to do art later in life. And the difference in the mindsets of those two people. The person who was born an artist, in a nutshell, identifies with being an artist. So any perfection that they don't have in their work is seen as a slight against their personality or against them as an individual. If I can't create the art that is in my mind on the canvas, or if somebody critiques my art and says, oh, that's good, but I don't understand what it means, or it doesn't represent whatever it is that you're trying to depict as well as I thought you could, then that artist, because they identify their art as their identity, when their art is critiqued, they are critiqued. And they look at practice as not being good enough. Oh, I have to practice because I'm not good enough. My art is my identity, and if my art isn't good enough, I'm not good enough. Versus the other person who learns art later in life, and they say, oh, I'm not very good at art. I can barely draw a stick figure. But I went to an art class, and it was pretty fun. And, I learned a few things, and I'm going to try painting something when I get home. And they get home, and they try to paint something, and it's not the world's best piece of art, but it's what they could do in the moment. And if they continue on with that process, if every now and then they pull out the brushes and the canvas and they paint and they go, oh wow, you know what, that was a little easier. I kind of learned. My hands working a little bit more in alignment with what I imagine in my mind. And then over time, they start to equate, oh, the more I paint, the better I get. The more I paint, the more I learn. They've separated their identity from what they're creating. They're creating for the process of creation itself. If someone critiques their art, they can step back from it and go, oh yeah, you're right. You know, that's a good point. Maybe I do need to figure out that perspective, right? I could have used a little bit more chartreuse or something in that painting that I was painting, because they're not wrapping their identity up in it. Anyways, so to bring this around to where I'm at right now and what I want to do with this channel, talk about things that are important to me, personal development, men's personal development specifically, so men's work, books like this, which actually, now that I think about it, I'm going to reference in just a second, because I think in the very first chapter, he talks about exactly what we're talking about here right now. But the thing is that I feel like at some level, I've wrapped my identity around this, and I felt like I had to approach this from a place of an expert. You know, oh, this is how you do things. So I've got all my stuff figured out, and this is how I did it. And I've never wanted to be that guy, but I guess I felt like I had to be that guy. I don't know. So if I put videos out that aren't very polished and kind of meandering all over the place and off on a rant, and someone critiques it, I'm sure, you know, there'll be a comment below this video. My God, this guy just goes on and on about nothing. I guess I would see that as a critique of me personally, but I think a better way to look at it is it's a critique of me practicing trying to be the version of myself that I would like to be. I would like to be more articulate. I would like to be more concise. I would like to be able to shape my thoughts and my ideas and interests into a short, well-outlined, cohesive thought without having to read from a script, to communicate a point and to also like listen to other people, what they have to say, and like have this back and forth and create something together. That's something that I would like to be able to bring to this channel. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I forgo the scripts and I just allow myself to, you know, do whatever this is right now, try to communicate a point as best I can. I don't know what this video is, honestly. I made this just to say, listen, Tay, you're not fucking reading from a ChatGPT script. And as far as we're concerned, ChatGPT isn't going to enter the equation. Well, I shouldn't say that actually, because ChatGPT does have its place. It really did help me with some things. Actually, an exercise that I did with ChatGPT, maybe I'll make a video on that, on how to get clear on your vision. And there's definitely a use case for ChatGPT because it can act as a sounding board for yourself. But that'll be another video. So let me try to find this so we can kind of wrap this video up. Yeah, I found it. It's chapter 1 in this book. It's a spectacular book, by the way. The Way of the Superior Man. I lend this book out the most to friends, I would say. I've got 3 copies of it. The first time I read this book, every chapters are very short, by the way. They're like 2 or 3 pages. Every chapter is just like a slap in the face. So this is this is what I'm talking about here. Spend at least 1 hour a day doing whatever you simply love to do, what you deeply feel you need to do in your heart, in spite of the daily duties that seem to contain you. However, be forewarned, you may discover that you don't or can't do it, that in fact, your fantasy of your future life is simply a fantasy. So this chapter is specifically talking about finding your purpose and working at it, you know, doing something that's involved with your higher purpose. And the truth is that it's easy to live in fantasy land. Like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. You know, I could have a huge YouTube channel talking about things that are really important and having meaningful moments of clarity in my conversations with myself on camera that affect millions of people and have such a positive impact in the world. But, you know, I need a better camera. I need a teleprompter before I do all that. But it will happen. And as that book points out, it's really easy to live in that fantasy. It's really difficult to be okay with where you're at right now and just say, hey, listen, I want to do this and I want to be perfect at it, but perfect is impossible. What I can do is my best today, and then I'll get feedback from it, and then I'll try to do an even better version of it tomorrow. I know I said I was going to wrap this up. Last thing, I promise. So I've worked in software, and a concept from SaaS, or software as a service, is like an MVP. Actually, I think I got this from Seth Godin's book, but it's, you know, SaaS companies employ this, which is the concept of an MVP. So MVP is like minimum viable product. I think in Seth Godin's book, this is the example he gives. So imagine a guy, he's like, oh, I've got a great idea for a product, a little widget. And so he designs the project in his mind, and then with a widget in his mind, he's like, okay, yeah, I think this is viable. I'm going to create this. So every night he goes down into his basement after work and he works on this little project. And he's working. It's every single night, every single weekend even, working on this little project. And it's like every time he gets close, he's like, it's not perfect yet. And he goes back to the drawing board. He works on it a little bit more. Months go by, years go by, and he's like starting to burn out. He's like, oh my God, I'm spending all my free time on this thing. He's like, his relationships are suffering. He's not going on vacations anymore. The vacation that he does take from work, he's just spending it on this little widget. And not to mention, as years go by, the market that he's building this thing for changes as well, because markets always evolve. And so he has to change things, features about this widget that he's building. Year turns into a decade. And he's like, you know what? I just don't have it in me anymore. So maybe he takes a couple years off, he enjoys his life, does some other things. And then he's like, he's still got this calling. It was such a great idea. I should finish that. So he goes back down into his basement. He's close to retirement now. So he's only got a couple years left of work anyways, but he's still in there evenings and weekends working on this widget, making changes when the market changes. Finally, he's like, fuck it. I'm going to release this thing, I guess. And so he packages it up. He puts it out into the world, and he knows it's going to sell because he's put his heart and soul into this thing. He's worked thousands of hours to build the world's greatest widget, and nobody buys it. Not one person. And the reason was because he built this widget for himself. The only input he had was from himself. He was the only person adding any ideas to this thing. So he literally built this widget for himself, even if he thought he was building it for the population of a market. So a better way to do it, a different way to do it, is an MVP, minimum viable product. What he could have done instead is gone down into the basement and worked on the widget. But instead of trying to get it perfect, what he could have done is said, okay, well, what's the why behind this project? What do I want it to do for the customer? Then the next question he could ask himself is, what's the most easiest achievable version of that I could work on and get out the door as quickly as possible, even if it's not perfect? In fact, it's like, it kind of scares me a little bit to put it out there. And that's what's called the MVP, the minimum viable product. It's the minimum amount you can possibly put into a product to make it viable to put out in the marketplace. And the reason why that works so well is because, yeah, it's scary, and no, it's not perfect. And yeah, you're going to get a lot of customers saying, this is good, but you could do this instead, or maybe if you added that. And that's what you're after. You're actually after that feedback. You're actually after the criticism that you fear so much. So if you put that product out into the wild and you have all these customers look at it and they go, yeah, this is okay, but could you do this? Well, then you're getting feedback from the people who are going to buy your product. So you go, yeah, we can do that. Let's take the product back, make some adjustments. Here, we did that. What do you think about this? They go, yeah, that's much better. Thank you. But what do you think about this? Could you do that? And you say, yeah, I think we could do that. You pull the product back in, you make some tweaks, and you put it back into the marketplace. And they give you criticism again, or critique, I should say. And you take it back and you make all these iterative changes so that you're working towards symbiotically with the customers who are actually going to be the end purchaser. You're working symbiotically to create a better and better and better and better product. And it allows you to get products out there as quickly as possible, to get feedback as quickly as possible, to improve it as quickly as possible. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, right? Like, I have ideas and I have interests and I have things that I want to share, and people that I want to share them with. And I'm just not that good at it right now. But this is my MVP. I'm just putting this out there. I'm not reading from a ChatGPT script. And tomorrow I'm going to do the same thing on a different topic. And hopefully you guys will give me feedback. And it's going to suck to read it, but I'll take that to heart, because ultimately you guys are the people that I want to have a conversation with. And I want to get better at having that conversation with you. And this is the only way to do that. So maybe if I'm going to do this, maybe you should too. What are you preventing yourself from doing? What is it that David Data is talking about that you live in the fantasy world of? What is it that you want to do, but you're preventing yourself from doing because you're too afraid to be not perfect at it? And you're waiting for that perfect moment that will never come. And then if you're going to overcome that, what's the MVP version of that you can do today? And I challenge you to do that right now. And then whatever it is, I want you to put it in a comment below this video so I can read it. Wow, that was a ramble. Well, thanks again for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and we'll see you then.